kind of explanation of where we stand with the Construction Cloud, the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Kind of the what are we trying to do? Enhancing operations and system integration, workflows through the cloud, right? So basically, these the Autodesk Construction Cloud, we'll get into a flow here in a minute. We'll understand what it is and so on and so forth. But basically, what we are able to do is take our information that we are creating on our desktop and all of our siloed workflows, and we're able to push them up to the cloud and ultimately be able to achieve a model-based, cloud-based environment that allows us to distribute information. And ultimately in this path where we're heading over the next few years to achieving digital twin. And we'll talk about some of these terms. Maybe you have or have not heard these, and we'll try to illustrate what some of them are. So yes, today's agenda, we'll talk about the background. What is the Autodesk Construction Cloud? We're going to show some kind of ideas and discover what are the workflows and the process and management that we can use for this with this platform. We'll talk about the actual tools themselves and kind of illustrate where they fit. And then we'll jump into the software and with myself and Mark going back and forth, kind of illustrating desktop. If there's already been some troubles with audio, maybe mobile will work, we'll see. But let's, and then we'll close out, of course, with remarks and some Q&A. All right, so digital transformation. So we all have heard the term, and we know that it's growing in all of our industries, whether we be, again, working in the factory, developing designs, capital projects, retrofits, things like that. In construction, no matter what we're doing, digital transformation, moving from paper-based and siloed processes to becoming this cohesive and connected workflow and industry and global, kind of in the globalization network, we're truly trying to grow and get connected, right? So ultimately, kind of those words, static, coming together, converging, and then ultimately dynamic. Being able to report in real time and having that living and breathing digital twin environment, that's really where we're headed. And so where are we, and where should we start? Have we started? What are your short and long-term goals? Where do you stand in the pursuit of digital twin or just growth in general? What are your 2, 3, 5-year term goals looking like? And where are you right now? Are you in the paper-based workflow, siloed workflows, right? Well, if that's the case, where do we go? What's the next step? Well, we got to get up and crawl, meaning we got to start to put some of our processes and whatnot onto into the cloud, or just, if not even in the cloud yet, digitized, right? Getting off paper. And that's step one. Step two, we're actually starting to run. We're moving from a more 2D based workflow into model driven workflow. And then when we're actually really starting to move, we build in the richer data set. And that's when we really, again, start to integrate and cross-pollinate various people's workflows and personas, right? So we are able to then be better connected to beyond our internal groups, but also with our external partners. And so really briefly here, what are some of the things that we're going to talk about? The ACC, that's just the Construction Cloud. Building information modeling, you may or may not have come across that. VDC, so if you want to think about building information modeling and VDC and how do they, they're kind of two terms in the same, so to speak, loosely, but them being kind of the design, in my head at least, the design phase where you're building in the rich information and the analysis and things like that. When we kind of split into the later phases into pre-construction and construction, we start to actually do VDC workflows where we're bringing our content up to a higher level of development and so on. BIM execution, something that is kind of the foundation of a BIM and model-based project, is a BIM execution plan is just kind of the framework of how you deliver. What is kind of the structure foundation of the Autodesk Construction Cloud? Well, that's the common data environment. That's our online, that's our cloud-based repository, right? And so some other things, what do we deal with, or who may we work with when we start to, when we come into a construction project? Who are some of those personas and companies we might deal with? GCs, general contractors, who are perhaps performing some of the work. CMs, who are really just managing the construction process. Subs, of course, all of our MEPs and specialties that we work with. And then building management systems. Do you have anything that is managing your back end, that is automating the processes and whatnot, and managing and keeping track of the processes within your building, be MSs, be ASs, CMMSs? So as far as the ACC, kind of the elevator pitch of what is the ACC, you can read as well as I can. It's this cloud-based tool. It facilitates project management, process, and workflow for all sorts of various personas. If you are in the construction world, if you are an owner, if you are working in your facility, once you've got into operations and you got the keys. So it's that type of tool that is a cloud-based collaborative project management tool that lets us be functional in the cloud and managed for the entire life cycle of the building. What are some of the major tools and features we need to focus on within the ACC? Well, lowest hanging fruit, document management. What are your current document management workflows and how are those executed? Well, we can take some of those things and we can pull them up into the cloud with the ACC and the Docs platform to be able to execute just kind of fairly simplistic document management workflows, whether that be just pure storage, not having to use one of our one of the other third-party cloud tools for storage, but then just being able to organize, share. One of the great parts that goes beyond just the simplistic things we would think of conventionally is the ability to view. So it's the viewer that we can view our various file types is the Forge viewer. So you've got 2D CAD, you've got PDFs, you've got your Revit files, your BIM content, your Navisworks files. All these various formats are able to be viewed and they're actionable in the cloud. So documents are a huge low-hanging fruit opportunity, right? Project management, that's when we really start to bolt on these additional tools for tracking progress, being able to deal with cost on the life cycle of a project. We're sharing data. We're able to connect with our outside, internal and external partners to have that, again, singular data set, the single source of truth. When we start to manage field work, well, we need to be able to manage processes and have reports and have things that we can pump out every single day that keep us in compliance, right? Safety, quality, inspection, stuff like that. Those are facilitated in the ACC as well. And like I said, collaboration, what are you currently doing? Is it siloed, or are we doing things where we might lose some of our information? Well, if we put it into the ACC, we're able to keep it connected, make it contextual, and make it, again, build out the data set of that project such that at the handover phase, we're able to have a much better picture of everything that has occurred prior to us getting in here and, coming into the project. And so I want to, you're going to be able to see this on the back end. And because of the time, I want to kind of touch on these quickly. So what are some of the things that you've dealt with in your daily life that cause you headaches, right? Well, like I said a moment ago, at handover, maybe that, the project gets handed over, you go into operations. Do you ever feel like you're restarting and you have to go back and find information that should be in your hands in a nice handover package that is clean, organized, and so on? Has that ever happened? that possibly has. And then as far as out-of-date documentation, what do you do internally to create an as-maintained state for your facility? Is it the case that as soon as operations turns over, you get the keys, you start moving, you have to do a change out or something occurs where you need to add on to one of your lines? Is that being updated and maintained live and up to date, and it's never falling behind such that you have to go again back to the beginning state and catch up? Collaboration with their external partners, has that ever been problematic? Sharing design files, things like that. How does that go? Does that cause you a headache ever? And then vendors, do you ever have information that maybe is not, formats that maybe you're not familiar with, and you have to go through, there's a headache to try to get those formats into something that you can consume that is actionable for you? Is that ever a problem? So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the processes and the workflows that are facilitated by the ACC. Like I said, document management. So you already have a network, or you've got other tools or locations where you can go and execute document management, but this tool allows you to do that as well. And it's this common data environment that allows us to have connected information for the life cycle. Well, cost management, is this something that you actually ever really need to do on large capital projects? Probably not. You might be bringing in the big guns of the GCs and CMs, then they're dealing with that. But the point is, with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you've got the ability to introduce cost management and deal with budgets, deal with change orders, deal with these cost updating through the life cycle of a project. So if it is that smaller project internal, you can go and do cost management activities in the Autodesk Construction Cloud as well. And it's connected to all these downstream activities, whether they be project management, if there's an RFI. If you need to have that change order come through, you can track that, all that activity within the Autodesk Construction Cloud as well. Super important, QA, QC, and safety, right? We have tools with our forms and whatnot in the program that let us create a form that we can have as a fillable form. It can be something we write, physically write into our desktop, on the mobile, things like that. And then we have these really powerful tools that are issues that let us go and create actionable work and action items and things like that as well, that we'll see when we get in here. Of course, again, similarly, safety. That is such an important part of our daily life. We have to make sure we're tracking that. And again, this platform lets you do that as well. Closeout, we've already spoken about. So kind of let's see what did we used to do, and now where can we go if we introduce something like the Autodesk Construction Cloud into our current process. Well, we've all seen this, we've dealt with it, fragmented data. I've got my emails, maybe you have a project management tool that doesn't necessarily connect to those emails. You don't want to have to go and push information here and there, and then it's out of date the moment that it arrives, right? Our plans, our layouts, whatever the case is, any kind of communication between external and internal parties, things like that, all of it just lives somewhere. Do we have a way to actually bring it all together under one roof? The common data environment, like we said, this is what facilitates it. In the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you have your document, the docs environment that brings everything together. A very important piece of what is the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So let's take a look at the actual tools and modules of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Working left to right, we'll focus at the design phase where, if we're working with external parties, say they're working in CAD or Revit or Navisworks, whatever those tools are, maybe the architects, engineers, contractors, you'll be able to go and collaborate with them, and you'll be able to see live updates to documents. They have their capabilities. Maybe you have integrated some Revit workflows, BIM workflows internally because you're gonna pursue that digital twin discussion, that whole ecosystem. Well, the BIM Collaborate is what facilitates that process and those workflows. Less perhaps applicable in the takeoff realm, in the pre-construction phase, the quantification tools that let us do, again, just takeoff of a model to get that scope of how much of this, that, and the other, and our materials do we have on a given project with both 2D and 3D functionality. And then of course, build, that's where that build is kind of the project management aspect of the umbrella of the construction cloud, right? Your RFIs, meeting minutes, your daily reports, safety workflow, all of those things, issue tracking, progress tracking, all those things come under the umbrella of the build piece. And now I'd like to hand over to Mark.
Thank you, Alan. I'm going to steal presentership. Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Now, essentially what we're going to talk about here is what happens when your factory floor turns into a construction site. And really what I want to portray here is all the tendrils where the construction cloud kind of feeds in to your Autodesk ecosystem already. And this could be something that as a building owner, you might be the one doing this, or if you're a system integrator working on someone else's building, these tendrils all have merits for how it connects into the construction cloud. So like most factory floor layouts, we're going to use this as our example. About 90 to 95% of all factory floor layouts start in AutoCAD. So I've already laid out some assets here, some conveyors, some packaging lines, an oven as well, some humans and some pallets as well. And I've done that utilizing the factory design utilities that we have inside of AutoCAD Mechanical and AutoCAD Architecture. So what I'm going to do from here next is simply open it inside of Inventor. Now, before I go too much into that, I just want to show some of the magic of how these products are connected. So let me go up here and grab a palette. We're going to drop a palette in right here. It's our happy little palette. Okay. And I'm also going to take a copy of this person. And we're going to add another man down here by the oven to monitor some things. Okay. So just adding a couple assets in there, one placed from the library and one just copy and pasted. Now, before I click the magic button, I just want to show you inside of Inventor that that palette does not exist there, nor does the happy little guy standing next to the oven. So inside of AutoCAD Mechanical, I'm going to click on Open in Inventor, perform a save, and then over in Inventor, it's going to update my 3D assets with the locational reference of my 2D ones. So my little happy little guy appeared there, and the happy little palette appeared over here as well. So there is a synchronicity between AutoCAD and Inventor for factory layout work. What's important to the construction cloud, though, is how you can bring in data from a building owner or from an architect. So as you can see, what I have here is a building outline. Now, I didn't model that building outline inside of Inventor. This is actually a Revit model. Let me just enable it so we can see it better. There we go. This is brought in from Autodesk Docs. So you can see this little cloud icon here inside my tree, okay? Essentially the way that's done is you do a place inside of Inventor, and instead of looking in your local workspace, you actually look in your Autodesk Docs drive, kind of like a Dropbox drive. You can find your projects. So we're working on the build factory project files, and there I can see my factory project to bring in. And it's actually locked by me for editing right now. So this allows me to bring this in. Now, if the RVT file from Revit were to change by the building owner, by an architect, whoever, what will happen inside of Inventor is a lightning bolt will appear in front of this that lets me know that I have an update available. and then I can process that update to say synchronized with the efforts happening in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Now, where I go from here becomes a little bit about process and how you approach your projects. So there's a couple of pathways. We're going to show one pathway, which is a little bit more traditional, but there's also other pathways that I'll go ahead and mention here briefly that we've actually done in other webcasts, where I can actually take my finished completed Inventor layout here and export this to Revit. By doing that, I can then save it into the Construction Cloud, into the Docs environment, and it can be linked and consumed by my architect or building owner. What's nice about that is when I update my Inventor model, I'll have a Revit exports folder up here that will also prompt me to update my Revit export based on changes I would have done in my conveyor line. So you can stay really synchronized with this environment with the interoperability tools of AutoCAD, Inventor, and Revit. Now, a little bit more of a traditional way to do this, again, is through what's called Navisworks. Now, this is something that everybody with a product design and manufacturing collection, as well as an AEC collection, owns. And it is kind of the gold standard and has been for a long time for model aggregation. And here inside of Inventor, I can click on Open in Navisworks. Now what that does is it actually opens Navisworks up for me to see this here. Again, it's an aggregation. I can bring other files into Navisworks as well. But really, I'm mostly concerned with taking this and doing a couple things with it. Number one, for my own personal preferences as a system integrator, or perhaps a building owner, depending on what you're doing, you can actually do a timeliner study here that actually shows demolition and construction of equipment in a Microsoft Project Gantt chart type style, so that you can actually visualize how the machines are going to get broken down or installed. If I had to move something out of the way before something comes in through the doors, if I had to widen the doors, things of that nature, which are important to the overall process, and you'd like to visualize that and show it to stakeholders. Now, once I've completed my Navisworks work here, and I just want to share that with somebody else, I can basically create what's called an NWD and save that into the Construction Cloud, which I've actually already done. So let's jump over to the Construction Cloud here. And from my perspective, as not being the primary project owner of this, we're going to rely on Alan for that. We're going to start here in the Docs environment. And you can see I have the same docs that were available to me in my drive on my computer, but in the web page. So here I can see all the files associated with that. If I want to look at, let's say, the just RVT that I created, again, this is a different type of workflow, but you can see I can push that conveyor line in there, and it can be consumed by somebody who's using a Revit model. It can be linked in for that. Okay. If I look at the overall project here, okay, this actually has just the building components, right? Some things you can do which are new for the software is you can do actually what's called a data exchange. And this is something else we've shown previously in other webcasts. But this is something that allows you to take only certain parts of the design and share it with your system integrator or someone who might be doing the outsourced work on your lines. It gives them a portion of the data, but it doesn't give them all the data. So things load up more effectively, and again, is bi-directional, or is synchronized, I should say. So when the Revit user makes an update, the data exchange can update as well. All right, jumping back over here, the next thing I want to take a look at, though, is creating some issues, because as good as Alan was with the building, I have some problems with what I received. So what I'm going to do is go create an issue. I'm going to go to this issue location here in Docs. Okay, this is still all things you can do in the Docs environment. There's a couple of things for you to look at here. There's some issues like a safety infraction, some design issues. This was assigned to me, but I'm going to actually create my own issue right now. And this is a design issue. I'm going to have it open. My problem is there are no columns in the Revit model. So I don't know if I am colliding with any existing building aspects. Okay. I would also like to have the HVAC smiley face. I'm going to go ahead and assign this to Alan, who's in the project. I can assign additional watchers because maybe I want to CC Alan's boss or another provider that is also important in this. For location, I can essentially fill this out, but I'm going to say this is really everywhere. Okay. Notice how nothing is loaded here because I don't have any defined locations. I can set due dates, start dates, and lastly, placement. Now, this is kind of a general issue. I don't really need to assign this directly to a part of the building, so I'm not going to choose placement. But if you had somewhere exactly where you knew this was at, you could actually go to a file, go to a sheet that is inside of Docs and say, this is exactly where I'm talking about. Okay, this is a little bit more general, so I'm not going to assign that. And the root cause is a constructability concern for me. So I'll go ahead and say create. And now this has been assigned to Alan. He gets emails on this. He gets automatically notified that these are some open issues for him. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the one that was assigned to me, though, for design. And it looks like it's asking me to extend radius 1 foot for a particular model. All right, so where's this at? Oh, it's in the conveyor line. Looks like he took a photo in the field and added it for me. So I'd really kind of want to take a look at that. All right, I know that's on the design coordination NWD, so let's go there. Clicking on it will take me to the Navisworks file that Alan has been using for aggregation. And it takes me right to it. Now, like Alan usually likes to play games on me, he likes to point me directly at a brick wall. But I'm going to go ahead and just hide this selected object so I can see inside there. And here's my issue. Clicking it again actually clears off your hiding, so be careful with that. But he wants me to extend this 1 foot on the radius on this guy. So I'm obliged to do so. My process will be to mark this as complete or as pending and go back to my design models and update them accordingly and republish. Again, automatically to the Docs environment, which will synchronize with the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Okay. So let's go ahead and click on that issue. And I'm going to look over here. There's pending. I'm going to say it's in review. Noted, Alan, thank you. And we're good there for now. All right. Let's go back over here. Just refresh that. Okay, we can see that's in review now. The next thing I want to look at, though, is a little bit more advanced. Okay, so this elevates my licensing a little bit to a different module of the Construction Cloud. Right now, I've just been playing in Docs. All of this is part of that sort of document management platform for that common design environment. We go here to Docs and then choose Build, okay, an added module of Construction Cloud. And what I'm concerned about here are some forms that were assigned to me. I actually got some emails on this, and I was added to this environment. So I'm going to look at forms. And there is a safety inspection. Let's go ahead and click on that one first. Okay. Now, this is not a smart form. This is essentially just a PDF that Alan uploaded, and he expects me to use the pen tool with Adobe to fill this out. Best practice is to create a smart form where you can actually fill that out right inside of this environment. So if you are going to use the forms inside of this, make smart forms. If I go back and look at a daily safety checklist, though, which is also a form here. This is not a PDF upload, though. This is simply questions that I need to answer as a punch list. I need to say, general safety infraction observed. Well, yeah, I did find that there was a problem or not a problem. Operational equipment, hard hats, you know, what's going on there. I'm currently locked from this one because it was already submitted, so I can basically review this. Ear protection, dust masks, safety lifting, hoist lift with your knees, clothing, footwear, gloves, personal fall arrests. There's some housekeeping things in here. Nails bent or removed, debris removal. Everything here seems to be satisfactory. So it looks like The inspection report that was done for safety is A-OK for us. Not really seeing any problems at all. Doesn't mean I'm going to give my guys the half day off, but I'm happy that they passed the checklist. Yeah. Now, a couple other things I want to touch on before I hand this back over to Alan. And for that, I'm going to minimize the Construction Cloud here for a moment. And I want to talk about document management for a system integrator or a building owner that is using traditional products like Inventor and AutoCAD here. The Vault product actually has the ability to connect to the Construction Cloud as well. So there is a functionality here inside of Vault Professional that allows me to collaborate with my drive allocations. So when I click on Collaborate here, go to Configure, this is a technology called Project Sync. Here I can choose a new synchronization, choose a Vault folder which I wish to synchronize. I'm going to say this paint booth down here. The Cloud Drive folder, I can map this to Autodesk Docs to a particular project, or to the Fusion Drive if you're using Fusion Teams. So as we're talking to Construction Cloud, it's going to go to Docs. So I would choose one of those projects there. Now what will happen with this is on a routine, it'll automatically upload release documents for me. It can be every 4 hours, 8 hours, 16 hours, but it will take things like PDFs and push them up there. Some things don't belong in the Construction Cloud, and that's fabrication quality models that if I have 2,000 components in an assembly, that does not belong in the Construction Cloud. PDFs of that belong in the Construction Cloud. Navisworks files of that belong in the Construction Cloud. Simplified factory assets from our factory design utilities could go into the Construction Cloud, but full fabrication detail models should not. Okay. But I wanted to show that there's quite a few tendrils inside of the Autodesk manufacturing products that enable a lot of these workflows and processes. One thing that I want to point out, if I go back to the Construction Cloud too, though, is when I go back to my Docs folder, this Revit project that Alan originally gave me was actually created in Revit 2022. I'm actually using Inventor 2023. So the RVT models that I create get saved as 2023 RVTs. Now, this is a accountability issue in our BIM execution plan. It's been written in the BIM execution plan that we should be using 2023 products and not 2022. Therefore, he is out of compliance. I am in compliance, so I'm going to hold him accountable to update this to 2023 Revit so everything can work cohesively and it matches with our BIM execution plan for our data and to make sure that everybody is working in the most effective way they can. So, all right, I'm going to pass this back over to Alan, and he's going to show you more about the Construction Cloud and different aspects of how this can enhance your workflows.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let's not mess this one up this time. All right, so I was going to illustrate the mobile, but at this point, not functional through the GoToMeeting. But with that said, what we've seen so far on Mark's platform on the cloud is really, it's a similar environment, and as needed, we can take a look at that down the road. But what I want to point out a couple things here. Everything that we've seen so far, outside of maybe what Mark showed in anything that's actually in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, is just on the internet. It's the cloud. We don't need any design software. Licensure, of course, for docs or build, but you don't have to have that super amped up computer with the computer package. So that's just something to take into account for stakeholders that you don't want, that they don't need any kind of heavy design computer. You can just be on the internet. And again, you can also be doing this in your desktop and your mobile environments, iOS and Android. One thing I wanted to show here is Mark created an issue, right? And that issue has come up, and I received the email. I mean, it's like pretty much instantaneous, maybe 2 minutes later, what have you. One of the nice things is that in this email, I will be able to go and click on it and navigate to, it's hyperlinked. So I go directly to it. I don't have to worry about fidgeting and trying to find something. I'm not sure where it was. I click on it and it jumps me directly to that location. So I'll jump over to the project. This is where it is, as you can see. Now, a couple things. Mark has touched on the issues and the forms. Notice the color change. It went from in review to now being the issue in review. I come back and say, hey, I'm okay with it. I like the change, and I close it out. Okay, so what we've done in the last few minutes, had I not, and I'm getting dinged here, obviously. I'm not in 22. I was working in Revit 22. I was supposed to be in 23. I can't share my screen. I'm definitely getting dinged at the end of the day. So for what it's worth, I'm able to create this. I'm wrapping up this workflow. I made a change on the design side, but I'm an external party. I share it with Mark. Mark goes out, maybe takes that picture or what have you, uploads it. I see it in the cloud on my end. We're doing all of this minus phone calls, minus trips to the site, minus having to walk out of my office, right? We're connecting information. We're connecting the stream of activity to just expedite a lot of work, right? And out of the data, the actual data set themselves, you're going to be able to see all the metadata packed into the content that you create, whatever package it's coming out of. There's opportunities to compare older and newer versions of files, things like that. And so getting back to the homepage here with the files, again, issues, you can take these issues and you can export them. They're customizable. There's a whole bunch of stuff out of the box, of course, with the Construction Cloud. But there's, again, you can go create new categories and new types of issues. You as a company are going to have all kinds of things that are clearly geared towards your processes and workflows. So one of the nice things to note is that the padlocks, these roll up to what are our insights, right? And our insights are dashboards that let us see the health and activity in a kind of a distilled dashboard of our project activity. There's a lot of connectivity. There's a lot of out-of-the-box Power BI templates that come with the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So if you're a big fan of that, those business analytics, you can go and grab those. Some of the nice things for the cloud these days, they recently rolled this out for templatizing things because, for certain activity, safety, and other things, there's all kinds of things that will come up every single day. You don't want to have to recreate the wheel every single time, and you can templatize your issues. Let's see. Let's go and check out those insights just real quick. And so here is our dashboard, right? And I don't have a lot of activity here, of course, but you can customize these cards. You can see here, I've got approval items. I say, hey, I've got 15 documents that need to go through the approval process. How does that look, right? And where do they stand in their status of the approval process? If you come across a bunch of issues from a specific vendor or contractor that is occurring day in, day out, you can go and create an issues panel that will let you see those, and then you can go and address that with those third-party folks. Okay, just lets you kind of grab everything into a quick glimpse, and then we can go and actually make that insight be actionable. One more thing, and then we will jump back. I'll jump back to Mark, and I'll jump back to the file, and we can do some closeouts. So reporting, this is incredibly important because you can automate a process of spitting out these RFI issues or issues, logs, things like that. You automate it so that every Tuesday you have an email that, hey, here's your report of all the information that has transpired that you asked it to grab. So that, again, automation and being able to just go and grab something really quickly is very handy. Something that is really growing and is very important also is the automation and transfer of data. So with the bridge tool, this bridge is really powerful because it lets me take my project and connect it to one of my internal projects or a third-party project that's up on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So if you're working with a contractor team or design teams, what you can do is schedule a bridge, and that bridge will push information back and forth, whatever those folders are. I can automate an entire folder structure to be pushed back and forth. If that's Word documents, PDFs, etc. And then through the life cycle, as things update, you can have that information will get pushed back and forth again in that automated way. Okay. Something that's really expanded is the assets module. And what we can do in the assets module is create physical assets, physical, quote unquote physical, but digital assets, where if it's a piece of equipment, I can tie a submittal to it, an IO and M to it. If there was an issue that occurred during installation, I can tie that to it. And what you're doing is creating this historical reference to the digital asset, right? You can customize your asset categories and so on and so forth. And there's some really powerful workflows that they've created. They put a lot of work Autodesk has into this assets module over the last release. They did the progress tracking beta in the middle of last year, and then they've really merged that with the assets module for these latest releases. So really powerful workflows there. But ultimately, it's to kind of button it up, it's a very powerful tool. We're able to connect all parties who maybe who have kind of unlinked thought process and file formats and workflows. We're able to go and bring them all together in one cloud-based environment to connect activity and process and workflow so that we can achieve a better design deliverable and ultimately, obviously, contract the construction phase, but ultimately, again, you're arriving at a better deliverable and handover so that when we get into operations, we are able to be moving at a much faster pace right out of the gate. So jumping back in here, Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Alan. So essentially what we learned today was that the Construction Cloud can provide a lot of enhancements for us, but it really boils down to the overall process and your execution plans in general. Proper execution of the Construction Cloud can improve project kickoff. It definitely enhances access to your information and project collaboration for the entire building lifecycle, so that when you start your next brownfield or new greenfield on your existing property, then you have much more accurate data to begin with. It also increases the transparency around the accountability for the construction team and system integrators, so that you can identify who did what, when they did it, who didn't do what, and why didn't they do it. Also creating safer job sites. So yeah, a lot of people can just carry on a clipboard and check something off, but it's always important to make sure that someone's actually doing it. So the environment for creating forms and safety checklists definitely gives you the ability to have better accountability around a safer job site. It also enhances your QA and QC process for punch lists or someone that needs to walk around as the installer and do their own punch list, and then have that also coordinate with the building owner and their own punch lists. It also helps reduce questions, requests for information, change orders, and otherwise unforeseen delays in communication problems. It will also streamline your project handover from an integrator to a building owner or vice versa, and also to other contractors through the GC, and also help you facilitate as maintained digital buildings. Again, working towards that idea of a digital twin, putting sensors on things and getting real life results and having that actually have actual tangible value in your digital factory. Alan, next slide. Now, obviously IMAGINiT can help with a lot of these things, right? So we do have services around just about everything we've talked about. When it's looking at the Autodesk Construction Cloud, though, what's pertinent to remember is this is not a huge uplift in time to get going with it. Our quick starts for the Construction Cloud are as simple as a day sometimes. The Docs licensing costs less than a Vault Pro seat, and you can actually buy those in bulk for volume discounts too. It's a unique licensing model. But we can definitely help with anything around consulting or professional services around your processes, developing BIM execution plans, modeling standards that people should follow, and attaining the correct processes for your workflows. We do also offer training on all these types of products in the Construction Cloud in our Productivity Now portal, which if you're a current subscriber to that portal, you have access to today. To learn more about the Construction Cloud, Autodesk Docs, and of course, any product that was shown here today.